My daughter sent me a voice message. You are not coming with us to New York. My husband doesn't want to see you. After I had paid for the vacation, I quietly canceled all the reservations. The family's expectations were against my sense of justice. When they arrived at the hotel, it began. 69 missed calls, and that was only the first consequence. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The morning light filtered through my kitchen window, catching the steam rising from my coffee mug. January 15th. Cold outside, colder inside my chest than I cared to admit. I'd been awake since 5, sitting at this same table, staring at my laptop screen. Booking.com glowed back at me, cursor blinking in the credit card field. 3 tickets to New York. Round trip from Seattle, April 10th. The Grand Excelsior Hotel, Times Square. 7 nights. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. $5,200. Most of my January pension check and a chunk of savings I'd been setting aside. For what? I'd asked myself that question before. For moments like last Christmas, maybe, when Michael barely looked at me across the dinner table. For Emily's tight smile when I arrived, the one that said she wished I'd brought a bigger check instead of showing up at all. The river outside my window reflected gray clouds. 10 years since Martha died. 10 years of trying to be enough for our daughter. I typed the numbers anyway. Pressed confirm. Watched the confirmation email arrive 30 seconds later. My phone buzzed before I could close the laptop. Emily. I felt that old familiar flutter, part hope, part dread. Dad! Her voice came through bright and sharp. I just got the notification. Oh my goodness, you actually did it. Of course I did, I said. The coffee had gone lukewarm. Told you I would. You're the absolute best. Michael and I were just saying we couldn't wait for this trip. New York in spring, can you imagine? We'll see shows, visit museums, all of it. Something in her tone reminded me of when she was 7, Christmas morning, tearing through wrapping paper. Before she learned to measure love in dollar amounts, I let myself smile. Glad I could help, honey. Silence stretched between us. I heard her breathing change. Actually, Dad, there's one tiny thing. Her voice shifted, took on that careful edge I'd learned to recognize. Michael mentioned we'll need extra for excursions and nice dinners. You know how expensive the city is. Could you maybe transfer another 1,500, just to be safe? The kitchen suddenly felt smaller. My hand tightened around the phone. Emily, I've already paid for everything. Flights, hotel, it's all covered. That's the budget. But Dad, that's what we agreed on, I said, calm, steady, even though my jaw ached from clenching. The booking's done. You'll have a wonderful time. Her sigh crackled through the speaker. Fine, I guess we'll make it work somehow. Thanks for the tickets anyway. The call ended. No goodbye. Just dead air where her voice had been. I sat there, phone cooling in my palm, staring at the family photos on the wall. Emily in her wedding dress, radiant, Michael's arm around her waist, both of them looking just past the camera, past me, toward something I couldn't see. Another photo. Emily's college graduation. I'd paid for that too. The car she drove now, my money. The down payment on their house in Seattle, mine. The coffee maker gurgled, starting a fresh pot I hadn't asked for. Must have hit the button by accident. I watched it brew, dark liquid filling the carafe, and felt something similar happening inside my chest. Not anger, not yet. Something quieter. Something that had been building for years, drop by drop, like this coffee that nobody would drink. I pulled up the confirmation email again. 3 passengers. James Anderson, Emily Johnson, Michael Johnson. Departure. April 10th, 7:45 a.m. Return. April 17th, 6:15 p.m. 2 months away. 2 months of planning, packing, anticipating. 2 months of pretending this trip would somehow fix the distance between us, bridge the gap that kept widening no matter how much I paid to close it. The river outside caught a break in the clouds, turned briefly silver. I'd proposed to Martha by that river 37 years ago. She would have known what to say to Emily, how to handle this. She always did. But Martha was gone, and I was here alone, drinking cold coffee and watching confirmations load on a screen. My phone sat silent on the table. No thank you text, no follow-up call. Just the echo of that sigh, that disappointment in her voice because I wouldn't give more. I picked up my mug, carried it to the sink. Outside, a crow landed on the fence, black against white snow. It cocked its head, looked straight at me through the glass. 2 months dissolved like sugar in hot water. I paid their March utility bill without being asked. Transferred money for Emily's car insurance when she texted a single sentence, "Due date coming up." No please, no thank you afterward. Just read receipts and silence. March 20th arrived wrapped in evening cold. I'd spent the day organizing my suitcase, folding shirts with military precision, the way Martha used to tease me about. 3 weeks until departure. The thought sat in my stomach like undigested food. My living room had that hollow quality empty houses get. The phone sat on the coffee table, screen dark. I'd just settled into my chair, considering dinner, when it lit up. A notification. Voice message from Emily. I reached for it slowly, like touching something that might burn. Pressed play. "Dad?" Her voice filled the room, flatter than I'd ever heard it. No greeting, no warmth. "You're not flying with us to New York. My husband doesn't want to see you. I know you paid for everything, but it's better this way. We'll still go, obviously, just without you. Sorry." The message ended. 15 seconds that rewrote everything. I played it again. And again. Her words didn't change. "My husband doesn't want to see you. Not, we think. Not, maybe it's best. Michael doesn't want me there." And Emily agreed without a fight. Sorry. Tacked on the end like an afterthought. Like apologizing for forgetting to pick up milk. My fingers went numb. The phone almost slipped from my hand. I stood up, sat down, stood again. The room tilted slightly, or maybe I did. How long had I been standing in the same spot? The window showed darkness now, though I couldn't remember the sun setting. My reflection stared back from the black glass. An old man with gray hair and confused eyes, holding a phone like it might explain itself if he looked hard enough. The voice message sat in my inbox, a small blue bubble containing dynamite. I wanted to delete it. I wanted to save it forever. I wanted to call her back and ask what I'd done, what I'd said, what I'd failed to be. But my throat closed around those questions before they could form words. I remembered the car, a Honda Civic, 3 years old. I'd co-signed the loan when their credit wasn't good enough, still made half the payments when they came up short. The down payment on their house in Seattle, $12,000 from my retirement fund. Martha's life insurance money. I'd given it freely, told myself it was investment in my daughter's future. This was the return, a voice message. 15 seconds of rejection. My legs carried me to the kitchen. I poured water, forgot to drink it. The glass sat on the counter, gathering condensation while I paced between rooms like a caged animal looking for exits that didn't exist. Somewhere in my chest, beneath the shock, something else started moving. It felt like ice cracking on a frozen lake, that sharp sound before everything breaks apart. I'd spent 10 years being grateful Emily still talked to me at all. Still let me be part of her life, even at arm's length. I'd paid and paid and paid for the privilege of being tolerated. My husband doesn't want to see you. The words played on loop in my head. Not her words, his. But she delivered them, and that made them hers too. She'd looked at that trip, those tickets I'd bought, that hotel I'd reserved, and decided that I was disposable. The money could stay. I could go. I picked up my phone again, opened my email, found the Booking.com confirmation, the airline receipts. 3 passengers. $5,200. Cancellation policy. Full refund minus $200 fee if canceled more than 14 days before departure. 3 weeks until April 10th. Plenty of time. My hand shook slightly as I set the phone down, not from fear, from something that felt dangerously close to clarity. I'd been asking the wrong questions all these years, not how can I be a better father, or what more can I give? The right question was simpler, cleaner. What happens when I stop? The clock on the wall ticked toward 9 p.m. Outside, wind rattled the windows. I stood in my living room, surrounded by photos of a family that didn't want me in them anymore, and felt something shift, like a bridge burning, like a door closing, like waking up. Morning came too bright, too early. I hadn't slept. Just laid in bed watching ceiling shadows shift, running calculations. 6 a.m. I gave up pretending and went to my office. The computer hummed to life. My email inbox glowed with unread messages, mostly spam, a few bills. Nothing from Emily, of course not. She'd said what she needed to say. I opened the airline website first, logged into my account, found the booking. 3 tickets stared back at me from the screen, names listed in neat rows. My cursor hovered over the Cancel Reservation button. 1 click, that's all it would take. I thought about calling her, explaining, asking if she understood what she'd done, what she was asking me to accept. But I'd spent 10 years explaining, asking, trying to make her see me as something other than a checkbook with legs. This time, I'd let my actions speak. I clicked. A pop-up appeared. "Are you sure you want to cancel this reservation?" Yes, I was sure. Surer than I'd been about anything in years. The confirmation took 3 seconds. Canceled. Refund processing. $5,000 minus $200 cancellation fee. Expected return in 5 to 7 business days. Next, the hotel. I dialed the number from the confirmation email. A woman answered, voice professionally cheerful. "Grand Excelsior, how may I assist you?" "I need to cancel a reservation," I said. My voice sounded strange, too calm, like it belonged to someone else. "Name's James Anderson, checking in April 10th. Keys clicked in the background. "I see it here, Mr. Anderson. May I ask the reason for cancellation?" "Change of plans. Simple. True. None of her business beyond that. I understand. The cancellation will incur a 1-night room charge, approximately $300. The remainder will be refunded to your original payment method within 10 business days. Would you like to proceed?" "Yes." More clicking. "All set, Mr. Anderson. You'll receive a confirmation email shortly. Is there anything else I can help you with today?" "No. Thank you." I hung up, sat back in my chair. The office felt larger somehow, like walls had moved outward while I wasn't looking. Sunlight streamed through the window, caught dust motes floating lazy patterns in the air. My phone sat silent on the desk. No calls, no messages. Emily didn't know yet. Wouldn't know until they tried to check in, showed up at the airport with luggage and expectations, and my credit card authorization that no longer existed. April 10th was 3 weeks away. 21 days for them to make plans, pack bags, arrange time off work. 21 days of anticipation that would end at a ticket counter, a confused agent saying there's no reservation under that name. Sorry, there must be some mistake. Except it wouldn't be a mistake. It would be a choice. Mine, for once. Not made out of anger or revenge, just simple logic. They didn't want me on the trip. Fine. They could take the trip without my money, too. Fair was fair. I pulled up my bank account. The refunds wouldn't process for days, but I could see the pending transactions. $5,000 minus fees coming back. Money that wouldn't go to ungrateful children who saw me as an obligation. Money I could spend on myself, or save, or burn in the fireplace for all it mattered. It was mine again. The email confirmation arrived. "Your reservation has been canceled." I saved it to a folder. Documentation, just in case. My coffee had gone cold again, 3rd morning in a row. I didn't bother reheating it, just sat there, feeling something unfamiliar settle in my chest. Not quite peace, not satisfaction either. Something simpler. The feeling of standing up after kneeling too long, blood rushing back into cramped legs, pins and needles and relief mixed together. I wondered when they'd notice. Who would check the reservation first, Emily or Michael? Would they call the airline? Demand to know what happened? Would they call me? The thought should have scared me. Instead, I felt curious, distant, like watching a movie I'd already seen, waiting for actors to hit their marks. My phone stayed silent. I picked it up anyway, scrolled through old messages. Years of one-word responses, requests for money, complaints about expenses. Not a single "How are you?" that wasn't followed by a favor. Not one "I love you," without strings attached. I deleted Emily's voice message. 15 seconds of rejection, gone with a swipe of my thumb. Then I blocked her number, and Michael's. Clean breaks heal faster than ragged ones. Martha told me that once, after I cut my hand in the garage. She'd been right then. Maybe she'd be right now, too. The computer screen dimmed to save power. I let it. Outside, clouds gathered over the river, promising rain. I'd lived in this house for 30 years, raised a daughter here, buried a wife. Time to figure out what came next when you stopped living for people who didn't want you around. 3 weeks until they found out. I had time to prepare, to practice what I'd say if they called, assuming I unblocked their numbers, to decide if I even wanted to answer. For now, I had my office, my coffee, my Riverview, and $5,000 on its way back to me. That felt like enough. Sunlight filtered through my living room curtains the next afternoon, casting long shadows across the carpet. I'd spent the previous night wide awake, checking my bank account every hour, watching for the refund notifications. They came through around 3 a.m., pending deposits, money returning home. Now, sitting in my armchair with tea cooling in my hands, I felt something unfamiliar settling into my bones. Not quite peace. Lighter than that, like setting down luggage I'd been carrying for years without realizing the weight. The river outside my window moved steady and gray. Same view I'd had for 30 years. Same house where Emily learned to walk, where Martha and I raised our daughter to believe family meant something. That investment had yielded returns I hadn't anticipated. A child who measured my worth in wire transfers and saw my presence as an inconvenience. I set the tea down untouched, opened the drawer in the side table, pulled out an old photo album, Emily's graduation, her in cap and gown, diploma held high, me standing beside her with pride splitting my face open. I'd paid every tuition bill, every textbook, every late-night emergency when her car broke down or her laptop died a week before finals. The next photo showed her wedding, Emily in white lace, Michael in his rented tux. I'd walked her down the aisle, handed her over to a man who barely acknowledged my existence, paid for half the reception because tradition, Emily said, though Michael's family contributed exactly nothing. My phone sat on the table, still blocked from their numbers. No calls, no texts. They had no idea yet. Wouldn't know until April 10th, when they showed up at SeaTac Airport with packed bags and expensive expectations. 19 days from now. The thought made my chest expand slightly, like breathing after holding your breath underwater. 19 days of them planning, discussing which Broadway shows to see, which restaurants to try. Michael probably bragging to coworkers about his Manhattan vacation. Emily shopping for outfits she'd wear in Times Square. All of it built on reservations that no longer existed. I closed the album, put it back in the drawer, walked to the kitchen where my notebook sat on the counter, the one I used for grocery lists and reminder notes. I flipped to a clean page, wrote today's date at the top. Below it, I made a list, not of things to do, things I'd been doing, automatic payments I'd set up years ago and never questioned, Emily's car insurance, renewed every 6 months with my credit card, the utilities at their Seattle house, gas, electric, water, even their internet bill because Michael complained once about the cost, and I'd volunteered to help out temporarily. That was 4 years ago. The pen moved across paper, tallying numbers. Roughly $800 monthly, almost $10,000 a year. Money flowing out of my account and into their comfort while they decided I wasn't worth a seat on a plane I'd purchased. I stared at the list, added another line, cell phone. Emily was still on my family plan. Had been since high school. She'd never asked to switch to her own account. I'd never thought to suggest it. The notebook pages felt crisp under my fingers. I tore the list out carefully, folded it twice, put it in my pocket. Not for any particular reason, just to keep it close. To remember this wasn't one insult, but 10 years of accumulated disrespect, itemized and categorized, and finally, visible. Outside, clouds gathered over the river, promising rain. I watched them build, dark and heavy with purpose. The temperature had dropped, spring pretending to be winter again, the way it did in Spokane. Unpredictable. Harsh when you expected gentleness. My reflection in the window glass showed a man I barely recognized. Same gray hair, same build, but something in the eyes had changed. They looked sharper, more awake, like I'd been sleepwalking through my own life and someone had finally shaken me conscious. The tea had gone cold completely. I poured it down the sink, rinsed the cup. Routine motions, familiar and grounding. The house settled around me. Creaks and sighs of old wood, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of traffic on the highway. 19 days until Emily and Michael arrived at an empty reservation desk. Until they tried to check into a hotel that didn't expect them. Until their phones lit up with my number, trying to reach someone who wouldn't answer because I'd already said everything that needed saying through my actions. I thought about Martha, what she'd say if she could see this. She'd always been better at standing up to Emily's demands, at drawing boundaries I was too soft to enforce. "You're teaching her to take you for granted," Martha had warned once, years ago, when Emily called demanding money for something frivolous. I hadn't listened, kept giving, kept believing it would eventually earn me the love that should have been freely given. The folded list crinkled in my pocket when I sat back down. I pulled it out, smoothed it flat on my knee. 800 monthly, 10,000 yearly. Numbers that added up to a truth I should have faced sooner. April 10th wasn't the end. It was barely the beginning. April 10th arrived dressed in evening shadows. I'd spent 3 weeks in careful routine. Morning coffee, afternoon walks, evening reading, normal life, except for the anticipation humming beneath every action, like waiting for thunder after seeing lightning. My phone sat charging on the kitchen counter. I'd unblocked their numbers that morning, not out of weakness, out of curiosity. I wanted to hear it when their world collapsed. The first call came at 6:47 p.m. I was heating soup on the stove when my phone erupted. Emily's name flashed across the screen, then again, and again. Call after call, each one ringing 4 times, before hitting voicemail. I stirred the soup, let it ring, counted the calls like meditation. 1, 3, 7, 12. At call number 17, I picked up. "Where are you?" Emily's voice came through so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. No greeting, no preamble, just raw panic dressed as rage. "Home," I said, calm as Sunday morning. "In Spokane, where I've been all day." "The reservation, Dad, there's no reservation." Her breathing sounded ragged, like she'd been running. "The hotel says they have nothing under Anderson. The airline says our tickets were canceled, and we're standing here like idiots with our luggage and nowhere to do—" "I know." 2 words, simple as breathing. Silence cracked through the phone line. Then, "You knew. You knew, and you didn't. How could you do this?" "You told me not to come," I said. My soup started bubbling. I turned down the heat. Exact words were, "You're not flying with us. My husband doesn't want to see you." So I respected Michael's wishes, canceled everything. But we were still going to go. This was our vacation. That I paid for. The words came out harder than I intended. Good. Every dollar, every reservation. Mine. And you kicked me off it like I was baggage you didn't want to carry. So I took my money and went home. Michael's voice came through the background, muffled but audible. "Let me talk to him." I heard the phone change hands. Then Michael, loud and aggressive. "Listen, old man, I don't know what game you're playing, but you're going to fix this right now. Transfer us money for a hotel. We'll figure out flights home tomorrow, but we need—" "No." "What did you just—" "No," I repeated. Let the words sit there, simple and final. "You made it clear I wasn't wanted. I'm respecting that. Fully. You can't just strand us here." Emily again, voice climbing toward hysteria. "We have no way to—" "Dad, please. We don't have money for a hotel. Our credit cards are maxed. We thought everything was covered. We need—" "Should have checked your confirmations," I said. "Should have called before you drove to the airport. Should have treated me with basic respect instead of like an ATM with an inconvenient personality attached." "This is insane." Michael's voice right up against the phone now. "We're your family. You don't abandon family." That word, family. Like he had any right to use it after spending 8 years pretending I didn't exist at holiday dinners. After convincing my daughter I wasn't worth a plane seat I'd purchased. "Funny," I said. My soup had started burning. I could smell it. Didn't care. "That's the same argument I've been using to justify supporting you both for years. Family. Except family goes both ways. You forgot that part." Emily started crying. Real tears or performed ones. Hard to tell over the phone. "Dad, please. We have nowhere to go. The next flight home isn't until tomorrow afternoon, and we can't afford it, and figure it out." I turned off the stove. The soup was ruined anyway. "You're adults. Michael has a job. Emily, you're capable. I'm sure you'll manage just fine without my money for once. You're really going to do this? Leave us here? Her voice broke on the last word. Almost made me waver. Almost. But then I remembered the voice message. You're not flying with us. My husband doesn't want to see you. Sorry, but it's better this way. Delivered like a weather report. Like I was nothing. I'm not leaving you anywhere, I said quietly. I'm just not saving you from consequences you created. There's a difference. I hung up. The phone immediately started ringing again. I let it. Watched the screen light up over and over. Emily, Michael, Emily, Emily, Michael. On and on, like a heartbeat made of desperation. By the time it stopped, my missed calls showed 69 attempts. 69 times they'd tried to reach the man they'd discarded 3 weeks ago. 69 chances to feel what I'd felt when that voice message played in my living room. Unwanted, disposable, less important than their comfort. A text arrived around midnight. Flying back tomorrow. Don't ever contact us again. From Emily's number, short, bitter, exactly what I'd expected. They'd found a way home somehow. Credit card, borrowed money, maybe Michael's company covered it as a business expense by lying about the trip purpose. Didn't matter. The important part was simpler. They'd learned what happened when you treated people like resources instead of humans. When you took and never thought about the cost. I deleted the text, looked at my phone, battery at 15%, screen dimmed from overuse. The calls had stopped. The emergency was over, handled without me for the first time in a decade. My ruined soup sat on the stove, burnt smell still hanging in the kitchen. I scraped it into the trash, washed the pot. Mechanical movements that gave my hands something to do while my mind processed what I'd just done. No guilt. That surprised me most. I kept waiting for it, for the familiar twist of regret that usually followed any time I disappointed Emily. It never came. Just a strange floating sensation like gravity had released its hold slightly. Tomorrow they'd fly home angry, embarrassed, probably already crafting a version of events where I was the villain. Let them. I'd stopped writing their script, stopped playing the role they'd assigned me. Silent, generous, endlessly available to fund their lives while remaining invisible in them. The kitchen clock read 1:15 a.m. Late, I should sleep. Instead, I stood at the window, watching clouds drift across a half moon, thinking about what came next, because this wasn't finished, not even close. Morning arrived soft and gray. I'd slept better than expected. 8 hours straight, no dreams. Woke to silence and possibility stretching out like an open road. My first action was checking my phone. No new messages. Emily and Michael were probably still at SeaTac waiting for their afternoon flight, sitting in uncomfortable airport chairs, learning what inconvenience felt like when you couldn't just call Dad to fix it. I made coffee. Real coffee. From the good beans I usually saved for company that never came. Today felt worth celebrating in small ways. The brew smelled like dark chocolate and promise. Sitting at my kitchen table, laptop open, I pulled up my bank account. The refunds had fully processed. $5,000 minus fees, sitting in my checking account where it belonged. Money that could buy groceries for months, could cover my own vacation somewhere, could just exist as a buffer against emergencies instead of being automatically allocated to Emily's comfort. I opened my notebook to the list I'd written days ago. 800 monthly and automatic payments. 10,000 yearly. A decade of this, maybe more. The numbers stopped meaning anything after a while. Just became routine. Expected. Not anymore. First, car insurance. I logged into the account. Found Emily's policy under my family plan. The cancel button sat there innocently, waiting. I hovered the cursor over it. This would mean her car became uninsured. Technically illegal to drive. Her problem now, not mine. I clicked. Confirmed. Policy canceled, effective end of current coverage period. 2 weeks from now, her insurance would lapse. They'd get a notification letter, have time to set up their own policy if they actually handled their responsibilities. Next, utilities. The Seattle House account pulled from my checking automatically every month. I'd set it up when they bought the place, told myself it was temporary. 4 years later, still paying. I navigated to the payment settings, deleted my card information, changed the contact to Emily's email instead of mine. The confirmation felt like removing a splinter I'd been walking on for years. Small pain when it came out, then relief. Cell phone service, Emily's line. I couldn't just cancel it. Contracts, penalties, complications. But I could transfer ownership, make her the account holder, let her pay her own bill going forward. The customer service rep sounded bored when I called. Process the change in 10 minutes. Ms. Johnson will receive notification of the account transfer, and the next bill will go to her directly. Perfect, I said. Internet service at their house, under my name, my card. I called the provider, went through the same process. Transfer ownership, remove payment information. Each call took less than 15 minutes. Each one felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. By noon, I'd dismantled 10 years of financial support in under 3 hours. No dramatic confrontation, no explanation owed, just quiet removal of resources they'd taken for granted. My coffee had gone cold. I reheated it in the microwave, stood at the kitchen window watching the river. The water moved steady and purposeful, the way it always had, unconcerned with human drama, just following its nature downhill toward something larger. I thought about calling Emily, explaining what I'd done, giving her a chance to yell at me properly instead of through voicemails and missed connections. But what would be the point? She'd demonstrated exactly how much my presence meant to her. This was just me matching her energy, reciprocating her level of care. Fair was fair. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. This is Emily on Michael's phone. Mine died. We're boarding now. You've destroyed our family over nothing. Hope you're satisfied living alone with your selfishness. I read it twice, looked for anything resembling self-awareness. Found none. Just accusation. Just victim performance. No acknowledgement that she'd sent the voice message that started this. That she'd kicked me off a vacation I'd purchased. That she'd spent a decade treating me like a wallet with legs. I didn't respond. Let her have the last word if it made her feel better. Words were cheap. Actions told the truth. Instead, I opened my banking app again. Calculated what I'd been spending monthly on their lives. $800 to them. Then my own bills. Mortgage paid off years ago, utilities, food, gas, maybe $1,200 total. My pension covered $3,000 monthly with room to spare. For years, most of my excess income had flowed directly to Emily. I'd lived small and careful, told myself I was being generous. Never questioned whether generosity without appreciation was just enabling. Now, looking at my budget with their expenses removed, I saw possibilities. Small trips I could take. Hobbies I'd abandoned because Emily needs. Books I could buy without guilt. Restaurants I could try without calculating whether I could afford it, after making sure they were covered. Freedom tasted like reheated coffee and quiet mornings, like canceled policies and transferred accounts, like finally putting myself on the list of people I supported. The river outside kept moving. I watched it and felt myself moving too, away from the man who'd believed love meant endless giving, towards someone who understood that respect had to flow both ways or not at all. This was just the beginning, I'd realized yesterday. Today confirmed it. The foundation was set. Everything I'd automatically provided, now removed. Everything they'd assumed would always be there, suddenly absent. Let them rebuild without me. Let them figure out insurance and bills and how to fund their lives with their own resources. I'd given them years of practice at taking, time to see if they'd learned anything about earning. My phone stayed quiet. They were on the plane now, probably sitting in middle seats, uncomfortable and angry, planning what they'd say to friends and family about their terrible father who'd abandoned them. Let them. People who actually knew me would see through it. People who didn't weren't worth explaining to. I finished my coffee, rinsed the mug, looked around my kitchen, same counters, same stove, same view. Everything familiar, but I stood in it differently now, straighter, lighter, like I'd been carrying their weight so long I'd forgotten what my own shoulders felt like. The notebook sat open on the table. I picked up my pen, turned to a fresh page, wrote at the top, things I want to do. Then I started listing. Small things, mostly. Visit the coast, join the community center, take that woodworking class I'd seen advertised, call old friends I'd lost touch with because Emily always needed something, Build a life that was mine, just mine. No one else's to commandeer or dismiss or take for granted. The pen moved across paper. Each item felt like reclaiming territory I'd surrendered without realizing I'd lost it. Each word a small declaration, I matter too. Outside, the river kept flowing. Inside, for the first time in 10 years, I felt like I was moving with it, instead of standing still while it rushed past. The day after felt lighter somehow, practical. I woke with purpose instead of dread, made breakfast without the background hum of obligation. The list from yesterday sat on my counter, things I wanted to do. But first, I needed to close a few more loops. My desk faced the window, river view steady as always. I pulled up my email, scrolled through confirmation messages from yesterday's cancellations. Everything processed cleanly. Emily's car insurance canceled. Utilities transferred. Phone, her responsibility now. Internet, same. But I'd missed something. The gym membership I'd added her to years ago, back when she claimed she needed it for her health. $29 monthly, automatically charged. Small enough to forget. Significant enough to matter. I called the fitness center, waded through hold music, something instrumental and forgettable. Thank you for calling Peak Performance. This is Jordan speaking. Hi, I need to remove someone from my family membership. My voice steady, businesslike. Emily Johnson. She's been on my account for about 6 years. Keys clicking. I see her here. May I ask why you're removing her? She's transitioning to her own account. Not a lie. Just letting them imagine a version where Emily had plans and agency instead of entitlement and shock coming her way. Understood. Effective immediately or end of billing cycle? Immediately. More clicking. Done. She'll receive notification within 24 hours. Anything else I can help with today? That's all? Thank you. One more thread cut. I made a note in my tracking spreadsheet. Yes, I'd started a spreadsheet yesterday. Columns for service, cancellation date, confirmation number. Martha would have laughed, called me obsessive. She'd also be proud of the thoroughness. Next item, the Amazon Prime account. Emily used it constantly, packages arriving at her Seattle address weekly. I'd added her as a household member years ago, never questioned the shared access, until now. The website made it easy. 3 clicks, confirmation checkbox done. Emily Johnson has been removed from your Amazon household. She'd lose access to my Prime benefits, free shipping, streaming, all of it. Would need her own subscription or learn to pay shipping costs like everyone else. My coffee cooled while I worked, checking accounts, subscriptions, anywhere my card information connected to their convenience. A storage unit I'd rented when they needed overflow space. Canceled, contents their problem now. Roadside assistance plan that covered her car, terminated, each one small individually. Together they formed scaffolding I'd built around their lives, without realizing how much structure I'd provided. By lunchtime, I'd identified 12 separate services. By dinner, I'd canceled 11. The 12th was trickier. The shared cloud storage where I'd backed up family photos. Emily had access. So did I. Deleting it felt too permanent, too petty. Instead, I downloaded everything to an external drive, then removed her access. Let her keep whatever she'd already saved. The rest was mine. The sun angled lower, painting my office walls gold. I leaned back in my chair, joints creaking in sympathy. 65 years old, spending my afternoon navigating customer service menus and clicking cancel subscription buttons. Not how I'd imagined this decade of my life. But then, I hadn't imagined a lot of things. Hadn't imagined my daughter would measure my worth in wire transfers. Hadn't imagined I'd need to teach her consequences like she was still a teenager, instead of a grown woman with a husband and a house. My phone sat silent on the desk. They didn't know yet. Wouldn't know until bills started arriving in their name. Cancellation notices piling up like evidence of my absence. 4 days, maybe 5, before the first wave hit. Utility companies were usually fastest. Then insurance notices. Then the smaller subscriptions. Death by 1,000 paper cuts. I should feel guilty. That's what good fathers felt, wasn't it? Remorse over hard lessons, worry about their children's struggles. I waited for those emotions, checked my chest for their familiar weight. Nothing. Just a quiet satisfaction, like finishing a project I'd procrastinated on too long. Completing tasks that needed doing, even if they weren't pleasant. Outside, the river caught sunset colors, orange and pink reflected on gray water. I'd lived by this river my entire adult life, watched it flood and freeze and thaw and flow. It never stopped moving, never questioned its direction, just followed the path gravity provided, wearing down obstacles through patient persistence. Maybe that's what this was. Not revenge, not cruelty, just gravity. Natural consequences flowing downhill toward people who'd convinced themselves they could stand above cause and effect indefinitely. My spreadsheet showed completion times: 11:47 a.m., 1:23 p.m., 3:06 p.m., 4:41 p.m. Each timestamp a moment where I chose myself over automatic generosity, where I asked, "Why am I doing this?" and found no good answer except habit. Emily would call eventually, not tomorrow, not the next day. But soon, when the disconnection notices arrived and reality started costing money she didn't have, she'd call angry, demanding explanations, acting wounded. Michael would probably get on the line too, voice tight with that particular strain of masculine aggression men use when they're scared, but can't admit it. I'd answer, let them yell. Explain calmly, quietly, that I was simply no longer subsidizing people who'd made clear I was unwanted. They'd call me selfish, vindictive, cruel. All the words people used when someone stopped giving them things they'd grown entitled to, and I'd accept those labels, wear them like armor. Better to be called selfish while respecting myself than generous while being treated like a disposable resource. The spreadsheet glowed on my screen. 12 rows of canceled services, 12 small acts of self-preservation. Not enough to hurt them permanently, just enough to inconvenience them thoroughly. To make visible all the invisible support I'd provided while being told I wasn't wanted on a vacation I'd purchased. Fair was fair. I saved the spreadsheet, backed it up to my new private cloud storage. Documentation. Proof, if anyone asked, that I'd actually been supporting them more than they'd realized or acknowledged. Evidence that my withdrawal wasn't random cruelty but proportional response. Tomorrow I'd go to the community center, maybe sign up for that woodworking class. Start building something new instead of maintaining something broken. But tonight I'd sit here with my river view and my completed spreadsheet and the profound relief of a burden set down. The phone stayed silent. The river kept flowing. And I felt, for the first time in 10 years, like my own person instead of someone's permanent safety net. 4 days passed in deliberate quiet. I took walks along the river, bought books I'd been meaning to read, slept better than I had in months. No calls, no texts, just the peaceful absence of other people's emergencies becoming mine. Until Tuesday evening, 6:43 p.m. My phone erupted. Emily's name lit up the screen. I let it ring twice, 3 times, poured myself water, sat down at my kitchen table, then answered, "What have you done?" Her voice came through jagged, somewhere between rage and panic. No hello, no preamble, straight to accusation. I assume you got some notices. I kept my tone even, conversational, like discussing weather instead of consequences. Notices? Dad, they're threatening to shut off our power. The insurance company says my car isn't covered anymore. The internet's been disconnected. My phone bill is suddenly in my name with a balance due, and all accurate. I took a sip of water. Let silence do some work. You can't just... This is insane. We can't afford all these bills at once, you know that. We're already struggling from the New York disaster you caused. The New York disaster you caused, I corrected gently. By telling me I wasn't wanted on a trip I'd paid for, I just acted accordingly. That's not... Dad, this is cruel. You're punishing us for one mistake. For something Michael said when he was stressed about work. You're being completely... Michael said. I set my water glass down carefully. Emily, the voice message came from your phone. Your voice. Your words. Michael doesn't want to see you. Those exact words. You delivered that message. You made that choice. Breathing filled the line. Ragged. She was crying or trying not to. I waited. Martha always said I was too quick to fill silences, too eager to smooth over discomfort. Time to break that habit. It wasn't supposed to go like this. Emily's voice came out smaller. We weren't trying to hurt you. We just thought the hotel had limited space, And Michael gets anxious around family, and it would be easier without me. The words landed flat. Factual. I understand. That's why I made things easier for myself, too. No more automatic payments. No more subsidizing your lives while being treated as optional. You don't understand what it's like. The panic surged back, drowning out whatever momentary vulnerability had appeared. We have a mortgage, car payments. Michael's job barely covers rent. And without your help, we can't... Can't what? Can't live the lifestyle you've grown accustomed to. My fingers traced patterns on the table. Emily, you're 35 years old. Michael is 37. You're adults with a house and careers. Or at least Michael has a career. Maybe it's time you got one too. I'm a homemaker. That is a career. And we needed your support. You knew that when you offered it, you can't just pull it away because your feelings got hurt over one trip. One trip. I repeated the word slowly. Let's talk about one trip. I paid $5,000 for tickets and hotels. You sent me a 15-second voice message saying I wasn't welcome. Then showed up at the airport expecting everything to still be there, expecting me to fund your vacation while staying home like a good little checkbook. When that didn't work, you demanded I wire you money to fix the problem you created. And now you're calling me cruel. Michael's voice came through the background, muffled but aggressive. Is that him? Let me. No, Emily sharp, then to me. Dad, please, I'm asking you, please, just... We need help. The power bill is $300. Insurance is another $250. Phone and internet together are almost $200. And that's not even counting groceries and gas, and whose fault is that? Silence. You spent 10 years taking my support for granted, I said. My voice stayed calm. That surprised me. I'd expected anger, instead found clarity. Never once asked if I could afford it. Never considered that money had to come from somewhere. Just assumed I'd keep paying indefinitely while you treated me like an inconvenience you tolerated for the benefits. That's not true. We love you. We've always... Love requires more than words, Emily. It requires respect, consideration, basic acknowledgement that I'm a person, not a resource. You failed on all counts. So that's IT? You're just done with us? Your own daughter? Tears now, audible. Real or performed, I couldn't tell anymore. Didn't care. You'd rather let us lose everything than forgive one mistake? I'm not making you lose anything, I said. I'm just not preventing you from experiencing the costs of your own decisions. There's a difference. You have two incomes, potentially, Michael's job and whatever work you choose to pursue. You have a house you can sell or refinance if needed. You have options. Just not me as an option anymore. You're a terrible father. You know that? Terrible. Her voice climbed toward hysteria. What would Mom say if she could see this? Abandoning us when we need you most? Martha's name, used as a weapon. That almost worked, almost made me flinch. But then I remembered. Martha had been the one warning me about this exact dynamic, telling me I was teaching Emily to take me for granted. Martha would have cut the support years ago. Your mother would tell you to grow up and take responsibility for your life. The words came out harder than intended. Good. She'd tell you that love isn't measured in wire transfers, and she'd be disappointed in how you've treated me. Emily made a sound, half sob, half rage. Fine, fine. Don't help us. See what happens. When we lose the house, when we're struggling, remember that you chose this. You chose to abandon your family over your hurt ego. I chose self-respect over being used. I stood up, carried my glass to the sink. You can choose to respect that or not. Either way, I'm done with this conversation. Wait, Dad, please. I hung up. The phone immediately started ringing again. I declined the call, and the next one, and the next. Finally, I turned it to silent, watched it light up repeatedly with ignored attempts. By 8 p.m., 23 missed calls showed on my screen. A record even beating the airport night. I deleted the notifications, blocked their numbers again, should have left them blocked after the first time. A text came through from an unknown number around 9. This is Emily from a friend's phone. You're making a huge mistake. We'll figure this out without you. Don't expect to hear from us again. I read it twice. Looked for remorse, accountability, any hint of self-awareness. Found only threats dressed as consequences. as if not hearing from them was punishment rather than relief. I didn't respond, just added the number to my block list and set my phone on the counter. Outside, darkness had settled over the river. No moon tonight, just stars reflecting on black water. Inside, I felt something settle too. Not satisfaction exactly, more like resolution. The argument I'd been avoiding for 10 years finally had. The boundaries I should have set a decade ago finally established. Late, yes, but done. Emily would tell people her version, the cruel father who abandoned his struggling daughter over nothing. Michael would corroborate, embellish, paint me as villain. Friends and distant relatives would hear a story carefully edited to erase 10 years of one-sided generosity and a voice message that started everything. Let them. Truth had a way of emerging eventually, and people who actually mattered would ask questions, see patterns, recognize imbalance. The rest didn't matter. They'd never mattered. Just voices in the background, judging situations they didn't understand. My phone glowed on the counter. Silent now. No more calls coming through. They'd said their piece, made their demands, discovered that demands without leverage were just wishes shouted into void. I turned off the kitchen light, headed to bed. Tomorrow I'd wake up and continue building whatever came next. Tonight I'd sleep knowing I'd stood my ground. Finally, after 10 years of bending, better late than never. Saturday morning arrived gray and cool. I'd spent the week in careful routine. Morning coffee, afternoon reading, evening walks. The phone stayed blessedly quiet. No calls, no texts. Just silence where chaos used to live. After breakfast, I opened my laptop. Email first. Bills, newsletters, nothing urgent. Then out of habit, I clicked over to Facebook. I rarely posted. Mostly scrolled to see what old friends were doing. Retirement snapshots. Grandchildren photos. The usual pleasant superficiality of social connection. Emily's post sat at the top of my feed, posted 2 hours ago. The preview text made my coffee turn bitter in my mouth. When your own father betrays you, it started. I clicked. Immediately wished I hadn't. The full post sprawled across my screen like an open wound. I never thought I'd have to write this, but I need to share what's happening. My father, who I've always loved and respected, has decided to completely cut us off financially, canceling our car insurance, utilities, even our phone service, all because we had to make a difficult decision about a family trip. He paid for a vacation to New York, and when my husband, who struggles with anxiety, said he needed the trip to be just us two for his mental health, my dad canceled everything and left us stranded at the airport with no way home. Now he's systematically destroying our lives by removing all support, leaving us scrambling to keep our power on and food on the table. I'm heartbroken. I thought family meant unconditional love. Apparently, I was wrong. If anyone knows of job opportunities in Seattle or can offer advice, please reach out. We're trying to rebuild from this betrayal. I read it 3 times, each word carefully chosen, each detail precisely angled. The anxiety mention, new information, convenient justification. The unconditional love framing, as if love meant funding without boundaries. The destroying our lives hyperbole, painting me as villain instead of someone who'd simply stopped being a perpetual ATM. The comment section stretched long. 53 replies, most sympathetic. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. Families should support each other always. Your dad sounds toxic. You're better off without that negativity. This is financial abuse. You should look into legal options. Can't believe a parent would do this, sending prayers and positive vibes. A few voices of skepticism appeared buried in the thread. There's probably more to this story. Why were you depending on your dad for bills at 35? Seems like maybe setting boundaries isn't betrayal. But Emily had responded to those with more elaboration, more justification. Michael had commented too. We've tried everything to reach out and resolve this, but James refuses to even talk to us like adults. It's devastating. I sat back, stared at the screen. This was the counterattack I'd expected but hadn't quite prepared for. Emily taking the narrative public, framing herself as victim, me as villain, banking on the fact that most people would see father cuts off daughter and stop thinking critically. My first instinct was to respond. Write my own comment explaining the voice message, the years of unacknowledged support, the entitled demands, defend myself with facts and receipts. But I stopped, fingers hovering over the keyboard. What would that accomplish? A public argument with my daughter where everyone picked sides and truth got buried under emotional appeal? Giving her more ammunition for the victim narrative? No. Better to let this play out. People who knew me would ask questions privately. People who didn't weren't worth convincing. I screenshotted the post anyway, saved it to a folder with all the other documentation, bank statements showing years of transfers, the voice message transcribed, cancellation confirmations, not to use now, just to have, in case. Then I logged out of Facebook, closed the laptop. The post would be there whether I looked at it or not, gathering reactions and reshares from people who'd never met me and never would. My phone buzzed, a text from Paul, an old work friend. Hey Jim, saw Emily's post. You okay? Call me if you want to talk. Simple, direct, not assuming anything. That's what actual friends did. Asked instead of judged. I typed back, I'm fine. Long story, but I'm doing what's right for me. Coffee sometime? Absolutely. Thursday work? Perfect. One conversation scheduled. One person willing to hear my side without performing public sympathy. More valuable than 1,000 Facebook comments. The morning stretched ahead. I could spend it refreshing that post, watching the comment count climb, torturing myself with strangers' opinions about situations they didn't understand. Or I could go to the hardware store, price materials for the bookshelf I'd been planning, start building something tangible instead of dwelling on things I couldn't control. Hardware store 1. I grabbed my jacket, keys, wallet, checked the list I'd made earlier, oak boards, wood glue, sandpaper, stain. A project Martha and I had talked about years ago, never got around to. Time to finally do it. Outside, the sky threatened rain but hadn't committed yet. My truck started on the first try. Another thing I'd maintained myself, never needed anyone else to handle. Capable, independent. The person I'd been before 10 years of parenthood turned into permanent emergency contact. Driving toward town, I thought about Emily's post, the phrase destroying our lives, stuck in my mind like a splinter, as if removing my money destroyed them, as if they had no agency, no capability, no option except dependence on a father they'd rejected when convenient. That was the part that stung most, not the public accusation, the implied helplessness. I'd raised Emily to be stronger than this. Martha and I had taught her problem-solving, resilience, independence. Somewhere along the way, those lessons got buried under the easier path. Just ask Dad, he'll fix it. I'd enabled that, let it happen through years of automatic yes. Every time I should have said, figure it out yourself, I'd said, here's money, instead. Taught her learned helplessness while trying to show love. Fixing that now, at 35, would hurt. Was hurting based on that Facebook post. But necessary hurt. Growing pain hurt. The kind that led somewhere better if you push through instead of avoiding. The hardware store parking lot was nearly empty. Saturday morning, most people sleeping in or running other errands. I parked near the entrance, sat for a moment in my truck. Rain had started finally, light drops on the windshield blurring the world into soft shapes. Inside, I'd buy materials and build something. Outside, Emily's post would keep circulating, gathering reactions, creating a version of events that had nothing to do with reality. Both things would happen simultaneously. Only one mattered for my actual life. I got out of the truck. Rain touched my face, cold and clean. The hardware store doors slid open with a mechanical hiss. Inside smelled like sawdust and possibility. Time to build something new. That evening, after the hardware store and bookshelf materials sat stacked in my garage, I made dinner. Simple pasta, nothing fancy. Ate it at my kitchen table while my laptop glowed across from me. Facebook still open to Emily's post. The comments had multiplied. 78 now, most painting me as some kind of monster. I'd spent 10 years being careful with Emily, measuring my words, softening truths, accepting blame I didn't earn to keep peace. That version of fatherhood had gotten me a voice message saying I wasn't wanted, and a public post calling me a betrayer. Time to stop being careful. My phone sat next to my plate. I picked it up, scrolled to saved messages. The voice message from March 20th, preserved like evidence. 15 seconds that started everything. I played it once more. Emily's voice flat and final. Dad, you're not flying with us to New York. My husband doesn't want to see you. I know you paid for everything, but it's better this way. Sorry. Better for whom, I'd wondered then. Now I knew. Better for them. Always for them. The second recording was newer, the phone call from April 16th. I'd recorded it using an app I'd downloaded after the airport confrontation, some instinct telling me to document what came next. Good instinct. The file captured everything. Emily's accusations, her claims about me being cruel, the part where she said, "We needed your support, and can't you just help us this once like the past decade hadn't happened?" Both files backed up to my computer, both ready to share, both true in ways that Emily's carefully worded post wasn't. I opened Facebook, logged in properly this time, not just scrolling, created a new post, typing carefully. I've seen the post my daughter made about me. Since she chose to make this public, I'll respond publicly with facts. Below are 2 audio recordings. The first is the voice message she sent me after I paid $5,200 for a family vacation to New York. The second is our phone conversation when she discovered I'd canceled the trip after being told I wasn't wanted. Listen for yourselves, then decide who betrayed whom. I uploaded both files. The voice message took 12 seconds. The phone conversation, 3 minutes 48 seconds. Progress bars crept across my screen while I waited. The mouse cursor hovered over Post. This was the line. Once crossed, no taking it back. Emily would see it. So would her friends, Michael's co-workers, distant relatives, everyone in their social circle. They'd hear her cold dismissal, her entitled demands, her complete lack of accountability. She'd hate me for this, probably forever. The relationship we had, strained and conditional as it was, would likely end here. But what relationship? One where I paid and stayed silent while she lied about me online? Where I accepted being called cruel for refusing to fund people who'd rejected me? That wasn't a relationship. That was exploitation with a family label attached. I clicked post. The screen refreshed. My response appeared at the top of my feed. Audio files embedded and playable. Posted 1 minute ago. 0 reactions yet. 0 comments. I stood up, walked to the window. The river outside had gone dark, just a black ribbon cutting through darker land. Somewhere in Seattle, Emily was probably scrolling her phone, reading supportive comments, feeling vindicated in her victim narrative. That wouldn't last long. My phone buzzed, a notification. Someone had listened to the first audio, then another notification, and another. The numbers started climbing. Reactions, shares, comments arriving faster than I could track them. I picked up my plate, rinsed it, made tea I didn't want, just needed something to do with my hands, while my phone lit up like a slot machine hitting jackpot. Each buzz another person hearing truth instead of Emily's edited version. 20 minutes after posting, my phone rang. Paul, the friend I'd scheduled coffee with. I answered. "Jim." His voice came through warm, relieved. "Just listen to your post? Everyone needs to hear this. I'm sorry you went through that. Thanks for listening before judging." My tea had steeped too long, turned bitter. I added sugar. Half the people commenting on Emily's post are changing their tune now, deleting their sympathy comments. Someone tagged her in yours. She's probably seen it by now. Probably. The thought should have made me nervous. Instead, I felt calm, like setting down weight I'd been holding at arm's length for too long, tired muscles finally allowed to rest. "Let me know if you need anything," Paul said, "and I mean it about Coffee Thursday." "I'll be there." After he hung up, I opened Facebook again. My post had exploded. 200 reactions, 83 comments. Numbers that meant nothing except that people were listening. Finally, after years of Emily controlling the narrative, presenting herself as struggling daughter with unsupportive father, the actual story was getting told. I scrolled through comments. "This changes everything. Your daughter sounds incredibly entitled. You paid for a vacation and she uninvited you? Then got mad you canceled. The nerve. 10 years of financial support, and this is how she treats you. I'm so sorry. Anyone calling him cruel needs to listen to these recordings. She's manipulative." Not everyone agreed. Some people, mostly Emily's close friends, doubled down on defending her. There's always two sides. Maybe he's manipulative off recording. A father should support his child no matter what. But those voices were drowned by the majority. By people who'd heard Emily's coldness, her lack of gratitude, her weaponized helplessness, who recognized patterns they'd seen in their own lives, takers who called boundary setting abuse and self-respect cruelty. My notifications kept buzzing. Someone had shared my post to a group about family boundaries. Then another share, and another. The audio files spreading beyond my small social circle, finding audiences who understood exactly what they were hearing. I turned my phone to silent, set its screen down on the table. This part was done. Truth distributed, evidence provided, lies exposed. What happened next was out of my control. Outside, clouds had cleared. Stars appeared, scattered across black sky like someone had spilled salt. I'd spent 10 years trying to be the father Emily wanted, generous to a fault, never demanding reciprocity, accepting scraps of affection as payment for thousands of dollars. That version of me had enabled her worst qualities, while suffocating my own needs. The bookshelf materials waited in my garage. Tomorrow I'd start building. Tonight I'd sleep, knowing I'd finally stopped protecting someone who'd never protected me, stopped hiding her cruelty to preserve a relationship that only existed when she needed money. My phone glowed on the table despite being face down, still buzzing periodically with notifications I wasn't reading. Somewhere in that digital noise, Emily was probably panicking, realizing her carefully constructed victim story had been demolished by her own recorded words, facing consequences for the first time in years. I felt no satisfaction in that, no joy, just a quiet sense of completion, like finishing a difficult project or closing a book you'd been reading too long. Relief that it was done, hope that what came next would be better. The tea had gone cold again. I poured it out, turned off lights, headed upstairs. Behind me, my phone kept lighting up the dark kitchen, notifications piling up like evidence that truth, when finally told, had power. Emily's lies never would. Tomorrow would bring more reactions, more comments, probably angry messages from Emily once she processed what had happened. But tonight belonged to sleep and the strange peace that came from finally defending myself. The river kept flowing, the stars stayed scattered, and I felt lighter than I had in a decade. 4 days disappeared into quiet routine. I built the bookshelf, sanding, staining, fitting pieces together with the patience retirement had taught me. Went to coffee with Paul, who told me about the online buzz my post had created. "You're practically famous in the parenting boundaries community," he'd said, grinning. I hadn't known such a community existed. Thursday morning, I allowed myself to check social media again. My post sat there with numbers that looked made up. 847 reactions, 312 comments, 156 shares. The audio files had been downloaded hundreds of times, spreading across platforms I didn't even use. I scrolled through the comment section, new voices every few hours. Played this for my husband, who keeps giving money to his entitled sister. Eye-opening. My daughter pulled the same thing, uninvited me to an event I'd funded. Thank you for speaking up. Everyone needs to hear this. Financial abuse goes both ways. The entitlement in her voice when she says, "We needed your support." Unbelievable. Buried in the flood of support, I found Emily's response. Posted 2 days ago, easy to miss, among hundreds of other comments. "I can't believe you'd humiliate me like this publicly. You've taken a private family matter and turned it into entertainment. This is exactly why we needed space from you. You don't respect boundaries. I'm deleting my original post because clearly you've poisoned everyone against me. Congratulations on your vindication. Hope it keeps you warm at night." No apology. No acknowledgement of what she'd said in those recordings. Just more accusations dressed as injury. More victim performance designed to guilt me back into silence. But her comment had 9 reactions compared to hundreds on others. Nobody was buying it anymore. The responses to her told that story. You made it public first. He just provided context. Respect boundaries. You uninvited him from a trip he paid for. Maybe listen to how you sound in those recordings and reflect. I kept scrolling, found a comment from someone claiming to be Emily's friend. I've known Emily for years. Always wondered about her relationship with her dad. She'd complain he was unsupportive, but show up with new expensive things he'd bought. The cognitive dissonance was wild. These recordings explain everything. Another from someone who'd been at their wedding. I remember James at the reception. Paid for half of it. Spent the whole night alone at his table while Emily and Michael ignored him. Felt awful watching that. Makes sense now. Strangers filling in pieces of a story I'd been too close to see clearly. A pattern of taking while complaining. Of accepting generosity while showing contempt. Of treating family like an ATM that occasionally had feelings you needed to manage. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Then curiosity won. Hello? Mr. Anderson. Female voice. Professional. This is Sarah Chen from the Spokane Chronicle. I'm a reporter covering family dynamics and financial boundaries. Your story has gone somewhat viral in certain online communities. Would you be willing to speak with me for an article? A reporter. My story. Newsworthy. The thought made me tired. I don't think so. I just wanted people to hear the truth. Not looking for publicity. I understand. But your situation resonates with thousands of people dealing with similar dynamics. Adult children expecting indefinite parental support while offering minimal relationship. It's become a cultural issue, especially among boomers transitioning to retirement. Your voice could help others? They can listen to the recordings. That says everything. Fair enough, but if you change your mind, here's my number. She recited digits I didn't write down. And Mr. Anderson? For what it's worth, my mother went through something similar with my brother. Your post helped her finally set boundaries. So thank you. She hung up. I sat there holding my phone, thinking about thousands of people I'd never meet, all listening to my daughter dismiss me in 15 seconds, all recognizing something familiar, all maybe learning that saying no didn't make them cruel. A text arrived. From Emily's number, still not blocked somehow. I'd forgotten to block it again after the Facebook posts. You've made your point. Everyone thinks I'm a terrible person now. Are you happy? Is this what you wanted? I stared at the message, thought about responding, explaining that I didn't want her humiliated, just wanted the truth told, that she'd started this by lying publicly, that everything I'd posted was her own words, nothing fabricated or exaggerated. But what would be the point? Emily wasn't asking for understanding. She was asking me to feel guilty for defending myself, to apologize for not letting her control the narrative, to go back to being the silent checkbook who absorbed blame without complaint. I deleted the text, blocked the number again, properly this time. No more chances to pull me back into patterns I'd spent months breaking. My coffee had gone cold. Outside, the day had turned bright and clear, rare for April in Spokane. I grabbed my jacket. The bookshelf could wait. I needed to walk, move, let the internet drama settle while I reminded myself what mattered. The river, the trees, the physical world that existed regardless of comments and shares and viral posts. Downtown, people passed without recognizing me. Nobody pointed or stared. I was still just a retired engineer taking a morning walk. The online attention hadn't translated to real-world fame. Good. I'd had enough attention to last a lifetime. At the community center, I stopped, walked inside. The woodworking class I'd been considering met on Saturday mornings. I signed up, paid the fee with my own money for my own interest, not as a favor, not as a gift, just as something I wanted to do. You'll need supplies, the coordinator said, handing me a list. But we have tools here. Looking forward to seeing you Saturday. Walking back home, I felt something settle. The Facebook post would keep circulating. Comments would keep arriving. But that wasn't my life. That was just noise around it. My actual life was this. Morning walks, coffee meetings, woodworking classes, small choices adding up to days I controlled. My phone stayed quiet in my pocket. No more texts from Emily. No more unknown numbers. Just the weight of a device I could ignore whenever I wanted. At home, the bookshelf stood half-finished in my garage. I picked up sandpaper, got back to work. The rhythm of sanding felt meditative. Back and forth, watching rough wood smooth under pressure. Simple cause and effect. Put in work, see results. No ambiguity, no manipulation, just wood and hands and time. Hours passed. The bookshelf took shape. My phone collected notifications I didn't check. Somewhere, Emily was probably still angry, still feeling victimized, still unable to see how her own actions had created every consequence she was experiencing. That was her journey to take or ignore. Mine was here, in sawdust and river views and the quiet satisfaction of building something that wouldn't demand anything back. The sun angled lower. I stepped back, examined my work. Almost finished. Another day, maybe two. Then I'd fill it with books I'd been meaning to read. Stories about other people's lives, other people's choices. A reminder that my drama, however loud it had gotten online, was just one small narrative in an infinite collection. That thought should have felt diminishing. Instead, it felt freeing. I was one person in billions, doing my best to live with dignity. The viral post would fade. Emily would move on or wouldn't. Either way, I'd built a bookshelf, signed up for a class, walked downtown without needing anyone's permission. That felt like enough. May 20th arrived warm and green. Spring had finally committed to staying. I'd spent the past month settling into patterns that felt like mine. Saturday woodworking, Tuesday walks, Friday coffee with Paul. The bookshelf stood finished in my living room, holding books I'd actually been reading instead of just owning. The Facebook post had faded from viral status to occasional mention. Still visible, still gathering random comments, but no longer the center of attention. Emily's original post had been deleted, as promised. The whole drama reduced to digital artifacts that would probably exist forever, but matter less with each passing day. I was making lunch when the doorbell rang. Unexpected. Paul wasn't coming until tomorrow. I wasn't expecting packages. Probably someone soliciting donations or asking about yard work. Through the window beside the door, I saw her, Emily, standing on my porch in jeans and a sweater that looked like Martha's before cancer took her. My chest tightened. Fight or flight kicked in. I hadn't seen my daughter face to face in over a year, not since last Christmas, when they'd come for exactly 2 hours and left early because Michael wasn't feeling well. She looked thinner, tired, the way people looked when they'd been crying recently and sleeping poorly. Her car, the Honda I'd helped purchase, sat in my driveway, which meant she'd driven 5 hours from Seattle to show up unannounced. I opened the door. "Emily!" "Dad!" Her voice cracked slightly. "Can I come in, please?" Every instinct screamed caution. This could be manipulation. Another attempt to guilt me back into old patterns. A performance designed to access resources she'd burned through by now. But she'd driven 5 hours. That meant something. Maybe. I stepped back. She entered slowly, like approaching something that might spook. We stood in my entryway, awkward, careful, two people who shared DNA but had forgotten how to share space. "Coffee?" The offering came automatic. Hospitality habits die hard. That would be nice. I led her to the kitchen, made 2 cups while she sat at my table, the same table where I'd sat when her voice message arrived, when I'd canceled the bookings, when I'd decided to stop being her ATM. So much had changed in this room. The silence between us felt heavy with all of it. I set her cup down, sat across from her, waited. This was her visit, her move. Emily wrapped her hands around the mug, stared into it like reading tea leaves. I listened to the recordings, not just once, maybe 100 times over the past month. She looked up. Her eyes were red. "I sound awful, Dad, entitled and cold, and I genuinely didn't realize how I've been treating you." I said nothing. Let her continue. "Michael and I have been fighting, a lot. About money, about you, about how we've been living. He thinks I should have come sooner. I wasn't ready. Kept telling myself you were being unreasonable, that parents should support their kids, that the recordings were taken out of context." She laughed, bitter and small. "But there's no context that makes what I said okay. No way to reframe my husband doesn't want to see you into something that doesn't sound like exactly what it was. Cruel." My coffee warmed my hands. I still didn't speak. She needed to say this. I needed to hear it without jumping in to make it easier. "I've been working." The words came out quiet. "Got a job at a marketing firm. Entry level, barely pays anything, but it's mine. Michael's been picking up overtime. We're managing the bills now. Barely. Definitely not comfortable. But we're doing it ourselves." She met my eyes. "I should have been doing that all along, instead of just expecting you to carry us forever?" "Yes," I said simply. "You should have." Emily flinched but nodded. "I'm sorry. I'm so deeply sorry. For the voice message, for everything I said on the phone, for the Facebook post, for 10 years of taking your money and giving you nothing but judgment in return. You deserved better. You deserved a daughter who appreciated you instead of one who saw you as a resource to manage. The apology hung between us. I turned it over in my mind, looking for holes, for manipulation, for the hooks that would lead back to requests for money. Found none. Just exhaustion and shame, and what looked like genuine understanding. I forgive you, I said. Her shoulders dropped with relief. But Emily, things can't go back to how they were. I'm done being your safety net. Done funding your life while being treated as optional. You're working now. That's good. Keep doing that. Build your own stability. Your own life, without my money propping it up. I know, she wiped her eyes with her sleeve. I'm not asking you to start again. I'm not asking for anything except, maybe, can we have a relationship, just as father and daughter? No money involved. Just, I miss you. I missed you before everything happened. I just didn't realize because I was so focused on what you could provide instead of who you were. I thought about that. Miss implied she'd once had me in a way that mattered, but maybe she had before Martha died, before grief and obligation transformed our relationship into transaction. Maybe there was something worth rebuilding. We can try, I said carefully, but slowly, and with boundaries. I need to trust that you want me, not what I can give you. That'll take time. I understand, she smiled slightly. Your woodworking stuff, that's new? Started taking classes. I gestured toward the living room. Built a bookshelf. Can I see it? We walked together. I showed her the bookshelf, explained the joints, the staining process. She listened like she actually cared, asked questions that suggested genuine interest. And for the first time in years, we had a conversation that wasn't about money or complaints or requests. Masked as small talk, we talked for an hour. She told me about the marketing job, how much she didn't know, how humbling entry-level work felt at 35. I told her about Paul, about the community center classes, about my plans to maybe travel somewhere small, Oregon coast maybe, just me. That sounds nice, she said. You should definitely do it. At the door we hugged, careful at first, then tighter. She felt smaller than I remembered, more human, less like the entitled villain I'd been carrying in my head. Thank you for forgiving me, she whispered. I'll do better, I promise. I believe you. Surprising myself, I meant it. She drove away. I stood on my porch watching her car disappear toward the highway that would take her back to Seattle, back to the life she was finally building with her own hands. Inside, my house felt different, lighter somehow. The air moved easier. I made a sandwich, ate it by the river window, thought about forgiveness versus reconciliation, about how you could offer the first without requiring the second, about how peace didn't mean erasing the past, just refusing to let it poison the future. My phone sat silent on the counter. No calls, no texts, just a device that connected me to people when I wanted, stayed quiet when I didn't. The Facebook post was still there, archived proof of what had happened, but it felt distant now. Evidence of a battle I'd won not through cruelty, but through truth. The bookshelf stood in my living room, solid and useful in mine. The woodworking class met tomorrow. Paul wanted to grab dinner Sunday. Small things, but they added up to a life I recognized. A life where I mattered not because of what I provided, but because of who I was. Emily would figure out her path, or she wouldn't. Either way, I'd be here, building things, reading books, taking walks, living for myself after years of living for someone who'd forgotten to value what that meant. The river outside kept flowing. The afternoon sun turned everything gold, and I felt, finally, like I'd come home to myself. Whatever came next would meet me here, standing in my own house, in my own life, with boundaries as solid as the bookshelf I'd built with my own hands. That felt like enough, more than enough, exactly right. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.